So let's bully get into what we did see on Raw, and that's that main event from last night between Liv Morgan and Becky Lynch. What did you think of the match? And I know it's only reports. There's all these reports that Becky Lynch's contract is going to be expiring soon. Some people are saying June 1st. I'm wondering what Becky's future is, but what did you feel about the match, and how do you feel about Liv Morgan as your WWE World Women's Champion or whatever it's called?
I like Liv being champion right now. I like the way they've gotten there. I like the fact that they didn't just put that championship on Liv in that battle royal. Now I think people are seeing why it was a better decision not to put the championship on her in the battle royal, or at least open-minded people. You put the championship on that battle royal, there's nowhere to go with her. With this, there's a monster story involved. Yep. The story of Liv and Dom and the Judgment Day, Dom and whatever happens when Rhea comes back. And we're in the storytelling business, as we know. Match last night, okay. Nothing to write home about. Fans were a little dead, I would say, for a majority of the match.
The only time I really heard the fans really get up and be loud, once again, is with Otis and Gable and Sami Zayn. That's when they were at, by far, the loudest of the night. But I agree with you. They were pretty dead during that main event last night.
You announce a steel cage match. Obviously, you announce a steel cage match because you want people to tune in, pop a rating. There was a reason for the cage. We did see the involvement of Dom at King and Queen of the Ring. Thus, the immediate rematch. Obviously, we've been programmed to know that whether it's a steel cage or a Hell in a Cell, it doesn't really matter anymore. People are climbing in and out, and who's getting, who's climbing over the top and what weapons get in. So I wasn't expecting anything traditional. When there is a steel cage match, I wouldn't mind seeing a drop of blood of two, especially when you're ramming somebody's head into the cage. If you ram your opponent's head into the steel cage repeatedly, and we don't see any blood, a trickle of blood, it's a major disconnect for me. What were you going to say? Go ahead.
No, I know it's a different company, but it was hard for me to buy in that match last night when on Sunday night I saw Malachi Black and Adam Copeland. Now, I understand that was a barbed wire cage match, but still, Bully, we grew up when there was a cage match on the card. There was going to be blood in that cage match. You weren't having a cage match, and there wasn't going to be blood.
And here's the thing: like if I'm in that cage and I'm Becky Lynch, I'm not ramming Liv Morgan's head with her blonde hair into the steel cage, repeatedly, because there is no blood. I'm a little bit of a traditionalist when it comes to that. We get the finish. The run-in of Braun, Braun bumping into Dom bumping into the cage door slamming on Becky Lynch, Liv crawling out, protects Becky from getting pinned. Did it work? Yes. Did we get the kiss afterward? Yes. So last night served its purpose. Whether or not people stuck around and tuned in for it at the end, I guess the rating will show whether it paid off or not. That's it. It's just another domino to fall in the storyline. Bigger than the cage match was the kiss.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I like what you just said, Bully, because I'm totally on board with everything you just said. You could have told the story in that match, and I wouldn't be thinking about blood or anything like that if Becky wasn't slamming Liv Morgan's head into the cage. Like, if it was all just about escaping the cage, which for the most part at the end, that's what it was all about, then I'm totally on board. But when you're seeing somebody's head getting repeatedly rammed into the cage and into that mesh, it's hard for me not to see just at least a trickle of blood coming off the forehead of Liv Morgan. Though I did like the ending where it was all about escaping the cage. And again, Bully, and I'm sure there's a big portion of our audience that watch both cage matches. When you look at the cage match from Sunday night with Adam Copeland and Malachi Black and the total bloodbath that match was, and then you see what we saw last night with Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan, it is a bit of a disconnect for me. Because, again, we grew up where most of the time when you are going to get a bloodbath, it's going to be in a cage match like that. And it's more about the hatred about the two people that are in that cage than about championship titles as well. You know, that was always the blow-off match in the feud. What was the blow-off match? The cage match. Because there is no escape. The two combatants are in that cage, and somebody's going to be laid out and somebody's going to walk out. And at least in the WWE, we've kind of gotten away from the foundation of what a cage match is all about.
And they go back, they use the rules when they need them. Now, just remind me, last night, was there only one way to win the match, or could you pin your opponent also? I completely forgot.
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can.
It was either by pinfall or leaving the cage, correct?
Yes.
So they protected Becky in the finish by Liv leaving the cage. Rumors, reports, speculations about Becky's contract being up. What's going to happen, where she's going to go. Maybe she's going to take some time off. Maybe she's going to go home and, be a mom for a while. Maybe she needs to, to recharge her batteries. Who knows? I think the speculation on everybody's mind is if Becky Lynch is not in the WWE and her contract expires, what could possibly happen? I mean, both sides, if you cannot come to an agreement right now on money, both sides are walking away with a handshake saying, all right, let's take a break from one another, agreeing that we're not going to talk to anybody else. We'll reconvene in, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It's going to make for some interesting speculation.
Yeah,
let's just take this hypothetical. Becky Lynch is no longer under contract to the WWE. Mm-hmm. Completely free and clear. If you're Tony Khan, what are you doing?
I'm at least making a pitch.
A pitch? Or are you backing up a Brinks truck?
I'm doing both. But you also have to understand, Bully, and I know that and we may get into this as well. Will Ospreay kind of made a plea for Ricochet to come over to AEW. There's other things that are factored. Ricochet is with Samantha Irvin. I'm sure that makes life a lot easier. Samantha Irvin is the ring announcer for Monday Night Raw. Ricochet wrestles on Monday Night Raw. That makes life very, very easy. For Becky Lynch, Becky Lynch is married to Seth Rollins, and they're both on the same brand. That makes life much, much easier. If you're working for a completely different company, I would think, Bully, that's going to make life tougher. And again, this is purely speculation. But let's look at because Will Ospreay brought it up in an interview. Let's bring up what Will Ospreay said about Ricochet. Now, Ricochet is with Samantha Irvin. They're engaged. So they're together. They are building a future together. They both work on Monday nights. Pretty much, Bully, their schedule is in sync, I would think. Right?
Yes.
But now if Ricochet goes over to AEW, starts working for AEW, now Ricochet is no longer working on Monday nights with Samantha. He's now either working on Wednesday nights and Saturday nights, or both. That's completely different. Now, your travel is different. When you're going to be home is different. When you're working is different. That's got to be very, very strenuous on a relationship, because I would think the traveling schedule of a pro wrestler is strenuous on a relationship to begin with. Go ahead.
Ding, ding, ding. Circle gets the square. The life of a pro wrestler on your own is difficult enough to begin with. Then a relationship. Then a child. Very, very difficult. Now, we are light years from how difficult it used to be in the past to how it is today. We see a lot more couples have tour buses. And like, I'll just take Seth and Becky, for instance. I would imagine that they have their bus where they can have their child on the bus, maybe a family member with them, maybe a nanny with them on the road, whatever it takes. So it is easier to maintain a relationship and a family on the road today than it was back in the day. Plus, back in the day, unfortunately, bookers, owners, and promoters didn't want you in a relationship. They didn't want you in a relationship, period. You know why?
Because it takes away from time for the company.
They want you married to the business. They wanted you married to the company. Because if you have anybody at home to worry about, that means you might miss a shot. A lot of the boys from back in the day will tell you, guys that have been in the business as long as me or longer, obviously longer than me, will tell you, missing the birth of children, missing anniversaries, birthdays, you name it, because you couldn't take a day off. You didn't even ask for a day off because you knew the minute you asked for a day off, you're going to have Eat with the Office and they're going to fill your spot. That's why you hear stories. I mean, we've seen it on enough of these documentaries. The boys are out on the road 28 out of 30 days a month.
Yeah.
Flair lived on the road. I mean, we all, to an extent, we all lived on the road. A significant portion of my life was spent on the road between 250 and 300 nights a year. And at least 7 of those years were spent on the road, 300 nights a year.
Yeah, it's an impossibility, and you hear those stories. So now, like you said, just
a relationship alone. Let's just talk about how do you maintain any type of relationship when you don't see your significant other 275 to 300 nights a year.
It's impossible. It's impossible to have a healthy one. Let's just say that. You might be able to maintain a relationship, but it's not going to be a healthy one because you need those two people interacting. So that's why I bring this up. And listen, maybe they can make it work somehow, some way. But Ricochet's going to, I would think, take that into consideration. All right, listen, yeah, they're not giving me 25, 30 matches on WWE program like I might get in AEW. But at this point in Ricochet's life, is that a main factor anymore for him? He's part of the WWE brand. He's on TV almost every week. He met his significant other as part of the WWE machine, and they get to maintain a healthy relationship by being together on the road. Like, you have to take that in consideration. So I understand what Will Ospreay had to say. And by the way, let me read what Will Ospreay had to say, and you give me your reaction organically by this because to me it's interesting because I understand where Will Ospreay is coming from, but I also don't think he's considering the whole thing. Now, he did an interview with comicbook.com. Okay, and he said about Ricochet, he said, this is Will Ospreay talking about Ricochet. I keep up with him all the time, and sometimes I get a little bit sad about it. I hope he's not sad, and I hope he's really happy. I keep up with him as much as I can, but I feel like people are forgetting who Ricochet was once upon a time. All these high flyers that you see, and myself included, we all took inspiration from Pac and Ricochet. The fact that they only value his time for under 5 minutes is appalling to me. And then, he's part of this WWE speed, and he's the WWE champion when it comes to this speed. He said, I just want people to remember who he is. If you go and look at 2012, 2013 Dragon Gate Ricochet, he was untouchable at that time. When it comes to this generation of high flyers, he was the greatest. He's the greatest high flyer ever. I know it sounds weird, but I do include, and I put him on the same level as a Rey Mysterio. I don't know how much longer he has gotten his contract, but I think it might be up soon. I don't know. I want him to know that there are people here, meaning AEW, that genuinely appreciate his work, and I want him to wrestle again. I want him here. I want him to know there isn't a bar. You are the fucking bar. I just want him to see with more time and ability to showcase himself how I saw him. He's one of the best going, and if the opportunity presents itself, I think he should bet on himself. I think he should remind himself that he's one of the best high flyers to ever do it. If it means he's got to come for me, then do it, because I'm right here waiting for you. So what do you think of Will Ospreay's comments, and do you think Ricochet's mind is going towards those comments, or do you think like he has a better upside remaining with the WWE?
The immediate thing that comes to mind is those are very nice comments. However, I don't think Will Ospreay is taking into account that Ricochet is in a relationship. He's talking from the point of view of, hey, you'll be able to become the wrestler that we all know you are. You'll be able to make great money here. You'll be able to do all your high flying stuff, all that stuff in the middle of the ring. Well, now he has something outside of the ring. It's his relationship. And what you said before, you cannot put a price tag on the value of that relationship. If Ricochet and Samantha, I'm sorry, they're together. Are they married, Dave?
Yeah, they're as far as I know right now, they're engaged.
They're engaged. Come on, man. The last thing you want to do is take yourself off of the same schedule as your wife. You can't put a price tag on that right now. Your happy life together within this business means more than going back and being the Dragon Gate version of yourself from 2012. That's the way other than that, yeah, nice words. Yeah, he did a little, great style and high flying, and he set the bar and greatest high flyer. Awesome.
I look at it in two ways. But probably the way I look at it is more towards what you're saying, Bully, because when you're married and you have a family, the most important thing is time. Like, that's more important than money. That's more important than anything else. More important than your job is the most important thing is time, because you never have enough of it. When you have a family, you never have enough time. So that time is weighed in gold for you. So I understand exactly where you're coming from, and I agree with it. But at the other side to look at it is that there is a window of opportunity when you're a performer. When you're an athlete, you have a window of opportunity. You hope that your family and that your wife is always going to be there. But that window of opportunity to do the best that you can as an athlete, at some point, Bully, Father Time is undefeated. At some point, especially what Will Ospreay is saying as a high flyer and being that ultra athletic wrestler, there's only a small window to do it. At some point, that window is going to be shut. So maybe Will Ospreay is looking at it, hey, man, you have a small lifeline here. Do you want to spend it doing 5-minute matches for the WWE in the mid-card, or do you want to do that doing 25 matches in AEW being at the top of the card? As an athlete, your mind might go that way as well. I mean, only you can speak of that because I'm not an athlete.
There's only one way. If I'm Ricochet and I have the same, I'm sure he makes a nice living. I'm sure his wife makes a nice living. His fiance makes a nice living. I'm sure that their dual incomes are affording them some nice things in life. Okay? The only way, if I'm Ricochet, that I'm even considering going back and being the Dragon Gate version of myself, or putting my body on the line the way the AEW fan would expect him to, is if AEW offered me double the amount of money. Where now you get to the point where they offer you such good money where even your fiance says, honey, go do it, because she'll be able to go make this much money for the next year, 2 year, 3 years, help us pad our nest egg. And then after that, done, or maybe you come back here or whatever. But he's got a nice gig in the WWE, and I'm sure the WWE would keep him around as long as he would like to be around. Ricochet falls into that good hand category. It's a kiss of death, but it is what it is. Whenever they need, he also, as Will Ospreay, said, Ricochet does that style better than anybody else does that style. And every once in a while, the WWE likes to roll out that style match so Ricochet can go do. If you get rid of Ricochet, who can do the Ricochet-esque match as well as Ricochet?
There's
Not
nobody
really.
there. But
No.
but again, it's not a big piece of what the WWE does. That's the biggest thing, Bully. I think the Ricochet style is just a thin slice of the pie of what makes up the WWE. In AEW, it's a much bigger part. I mean, you know,
but
it's
also going to
part.
AEW opens up. Listen, anybody can get hurt at any given time. You can get hurt at a side headlock takeover, but Ricochet is now going to put the pedal to the metal, go balls to the wall on that style, just so he can impress the world all over again. You open up you open yourself up for that chance, for injury, which can happen, which can happen more often than not, especially if you're not used to going like that anymore. To me, it's all about money. At this stage of the game, it's all about money. Where can I make the most amount of money and have the most longevity? I'm sure he's doing well. Is Ricochet making Cody Rhodes money? No. But I'm sure he's doing well for himself. Why risk it? Does the risk equal the reward? Because there's only one reward in wrestling. Money.
Yeah, and I feel like he's
and
never
for
going
the 1%ers out there of pro wrestlers who say, no, Bully, it's not about money, it's about this, or the quality of my matches. Very few wrestlers think like that, especially when the money is right in front of them. Most wrestlers who talk about, going to have 5-star matches have never had that real money thrown in front of them.
Well, I mean, I think in the case of AEW, I think, Bully, you would agree that Tony Khan, that's something that definitely lures people into AEW, are the people that have the potential to put on 5-star matches. So let me ask you this. Ricochet, I think we both would agree, because if it was going to happen, it would have happened already. Ricochet's never going to be on the top of the card in the WWE. He's never going to be a main event guy. It's just not going to happen. But could it happen in AEW? If Ricochet went to AEW, do you see Ricochet being in a main event feud with Will Ospreay in front of 70,000 fans at Wembley?
For a one-off.
I do too. Like I feel like Ricochet would be much higher on the card in AEW than he would ever be in the WWE.
For a one-off. Higher on the card. When you say higher on the card to me, that means you are higher on the card for a significant amount of time.
Well, but you also mentioned money.
There's a difference between being put in a main event and being a main eventer. All
right, but let me ask you, and because this is all speculation, we're just speculating here. Knowing what you know of Tony Khan, knowing what you know of AEW, and knowing what you know of Ricochet, and hearing those words from Will Ospreay, because I think you would agree, Will Ospreay now is one of those upper tier wrestlers in AEW. Would Tony Khan throw a boatload of money to Ricochet? And all those things that you're saying about money, about prestige, about all those things, is it more likely that Ricochet would have that with AEW than with WWE?
I think Tony Khan would throw a boatload of money at anybody he could possibly get his hands on from the WWE, just because Tony Khan thinks he's at war with the WWE.
All right,
and I believe that Tony Khan is the only person who believes he's at war with the WWE.
All right, so Bully, that being said, what you just said, now one of your top guys is openly like saying, "Hey, I want you here. I want you to come here." I would think all those things that you said that would lure Ricochet over, AEW would supply. I would not be shocked if when Ricochet's contract was over with the WWE that he would go to AEW.
There's no reason why with Ricochet's "this is awesome" style, with Ricochet's 5-star match style, that a promoter, matchmaker like Tony Khan would not want to. And I'm sure paying Ricochet double the money of what he's making in WWE is not that big of a deal for Tony Khan.
Agreed.
I don't think any amount of money is that big of a deal for Tony Khan. That's why we talk about Tony.
Well, what? I always think with anybody that has money, there's always going to be a cap on how much money they want.
Well, there doesn't seem to be a cap so far.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know how much money he's actually spending as opposed to money that AEW is actually making, which is the AEW, by the way, people don't get. They are making a boatload of money, and WB is very, very happy with AEW. So, but at the same time, as much as I think that it wouldn't shock me if all the reports are true about Becky Lynch and her contract, I would be shocked if Becky Lynch went to AEW. I can't see a world where if Becky Lynch's contract expires that she would ever venture going to a place other than the WWE.
Both personally and professionally, I would agree with that. I'm just shocked that they're that far apart at this stage of the game, if the reports are true.
Yeah, because
Bully, you're not. They must not even be at the point where they're saying, "All right, let's just cut it in half."
Or maybe Bully, we don't know. Maybe she's contemplating whether she wants to continue to be a pro wrestler or not. We don't know that. She might be like, "Hey, my husband makes a boatload of money. He's a top tier guy. He's a main eventer. I made a boatload of money as a main eventer with the WWE. We started a family. I just came out with a book that's extremely successful. Maybe her audio book, from all I heard, made a boatload of money. Maybe she's looking at that next stage of her life. You don't know."
In my opinion, Dave, and I'm not Becky Lynch, but being a main event mom is a lot more important than being a main event wrestler.
Yeah, I think now with the money that wrestlers make, Bully, which is completely different. Listen, Becky Lynch is 37 years old. Is that old? 37 years old is not old. But 37 years old is at that age where maybe your priorities start to change and your career outlook starts to change. And when you're successful as an author and successful in doing things outside of the ring, maybe she is contemplating whether this is something she wants to do into her 40s. Maybe Becky doesn't want to be a wrestler at 41, 42 years old.
And for a woman, it's considerably different than it is for a man, especially if you have a child. Because being a good mom, to me, and we've seen this from Becky, I believe that being a good, forget about a good mom, a great mom is more important than being a great wrestler at this stage. You've been a great wrestler. You've main evented WrestleMania. You've done just about everything that there is to do. I don't know what other goals Becky has, is winning the women's championship for another time, a goal. What could be more important of a goal in pro wrestling right now than being a great mom?
Hey, listen, who knows what the discussions are? Maybe the discussions are with Seth, where Seth is like, you know what? I'm burnt on this whole wrestling thing. You know what? I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad, and you go out and win all the championships and make all the money. Go do it.
And let me tell you something. Being burnt in the world of pro wrestling is not very difficult to do. I can't tell you how many guys and gals have been burnt and worked through the burn. And, at the end of the day, it weighs hard on you. So, listen, I hope she's just taking some time off. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna say something that you may or may not agree with, because let's just say her contract expires, and we talked about what we said earlier, where Tony Khan offers a boatload of money to Becky. I think Becky Lynch is a needle mover. I think there's a strong enough fan base for Becky, and there's a lot of love for Becky, where I think if the WWE was to lose Becky to a company like AEW, I think Becky adds more fans to AEW. And I know that's crazy because we've seen CM Punk was that person. I still say
the only one. Okay. He's the only example you can use.
Yes.
As somebody who came over from the WWE, who I want to use, give me a word better than mildly.
He was a significant, noticeable.
Okay, if you want to use noticeable, he was, yeah, good, thank you. He was a noticeable mover of the needle when it came to a rating. Was it for a significant amount of time? No. He was a significant mover of the bottom line when it came to a sold-out house, $1 million house.
Bully, he gave AEW their first $1 million house. Consistently, if you go by ratings, they were over 1 million when CM Punk was a part of that. I think Collision took a significant hit when CM Punk was off that show. Attendance-wise and viewership-wise. I will always go by the statement that CM Punk, to me, was a significant needle mover for AEW. I think Becky could be a significant needle mover for AEW. I really do.
Okay, just a clear question. Before Mercedes got there, would you have said the same thing? Or did you say the same thing?
God, it's a great question. I don't think I did. I thought that Mercedes.
You want to take time to think about it?
No, I don't need time. I'm going to answer it right here and then we'll break. I thought Mercedes was going to be more of a needle mover than she has been. Now, also, Bully, to be fair with Mercedes, she was on TV for what seemed like an eternity without actually getting into the ring. I don't think they did her any favors by having her out there week in and week out with actually getting into the ring and having a match. Go ahead, Paul. I know Paul has something to say.
No, I just have a question, I guess. Like, let's just say, hypothetically, Becky Lynch would go to AEW, and she was able to keep the name Becky Lynch because, don't forget, like, Sasha Banks is not in AEW. So I do think there's a little something to, it's Mercedes Moné. It's a great name, but it's not the name that the WWE fans know.
Name value is always going to be something.
Rebecca Lynch is her name?
Rebecca Quinn is her real name.
Quinn.
But,
then she
but
can't
if she
keep
was
Becky
Rebecca
Lynch.
Lynch, right.
But I also think with Mercedes, she was out for an entire year after the injury in New Japan. She was out that's a whole year without being able to get into the ring. And then they debuted her, like, what was it? Like 3 months before she was able to get into the ring and wrestle. If Becky could come in, even if she's Rebecca Quinn, I think if she was I think Becky Lynch is a bigger star than Mercedes Moné. Is it fair to say that?
You tell me.
I think she's a bigger star than Mercedes Moné.
I
love Mercedes. Listen, I think Becky Lynch is a bigger star than Charlotte Flair. Do I think Charlotte Flair is the best women's wrestler in the world? Yes. Do I think Becky Lynch is more popular and a bigger star than Charlotte Flair? The answer is yes.
There have been a lot of people who have come over from the WWE, big names, who were supposed to significantly move the needle for AEW that did not. You can't take the initial set of names like the Jericho because he was there from day one and he, was part of the whole, honeymoon phase of ratings. Punk is the only one. If I was Tony Khan and I had an opportunity to get my hands on Becky Lynch and I made, quote unquote, from The Godfather, I made her an offer she couldn't refuse. The day that I signed her, I would announce to the world that I had signed her and put a countdown clock on her to her debut. The entire world would know that in the next 90 days, Rebecca Lynch, Rebecca Quinn, Becky Lynch, whoever it is going to be on my television show. You have to shout it at the top of the rooftops every single day if you want the world to know she's going to be there. That's how you give your best opportunity to move a needle. No surprises, no speculation, no maybe, because you're only going to get one shot to catch that lightning in a bottle.
I agree with you 1,000%. You promote that to the till. And it's also, to me, when it comes to Becky Lynch, she's the one person, and they tried it and failed. She's a babyface. She's loved. Like Mercedes, right now, I think the AEW faithful want her to be a heel. I mean, she was, to me, the heel in that match with Willow Nightingale. It was very 50-50, but I think more the fans were behind Willow than they were Mercedes. I think AEW kind of dropped the ball with this. Not all of it their fault, but it's not exactly the start that they wanted for Mercedes. If you play the cards right and Becky Lynch is debuted the right way, and like you say, you promote it to the tilt, I think Becky Lynch would be a needle mover for AEW. I really do.
I would,
877
on the surface, I want to agree with you. Based on history, I can't.